Round the World Lit Audio. Lord of the Flies by William Golding. Episode 2. The Beast, Simon, and the Lord of the Flies. Full narration script. Channel intro. Welcome to Around the World Lit Audio, the greatest stories ever told, from every corner of the world, in English. New chapter every week, free to listen. Chapter recap. In Episode 1, English schoolboys crashed on a tropical island without adults. Ralph was elected leader and held the conch. Jack was given the hunters. A signal fire was lit and got away from them. A litlun with a mulberry birthmark disappeared and nobody said directly what happened. Jack painted his face and discovered the mask freed him from the identity the unmasked face carried. He killed his first pig while a ship passed and the fire went out. He hit Piggy and broke one lens of the glasses. The conch was called. Episode 2. The Beast, Simon, and the Lord of the Flies. Chapter 5. Beast from Water. Ralph called an assembly at dusk. He held the conch and thought about what needed to be said. Thought about it, with the specific effort of a boy who is trying to be an adult and knows that the thinking required of adults is different from the thinking he has been trained for, more structured and more honest and less comfortable. He said, "Things are breaking up." He said it simply and directly, which was his strength. Ralph could not theorize and could not enchant, but he could say the true thing in the plainest possible way. Things were breaking up. The fire was not being maintained. The shelters were inadequate. The Littluns were not observing basic rules of sanitation. The fear was spreading. The fear was the problem he most needed to address. The Littluns were having nightmares. They were waking in the dark screaming, not the ordinary nightmares of children who are far from home, but the specific nightmares of children who have been told a story about a beast, and have found that the story, once introduced into the mind, is very difficult to remove. They had begun to believe that there was something on the island, something that came in the night, something in the water, something on the mountain. Ralph said, "The thing is, fear can't hurt you any more than a dream. There aren't any beasts to be afraid of on this island." He said, "Ralph's right, of course. There isn't a beast." Then Piggy said, "Unless." He said it and stopped. Simon said, "Unless we are the beast." The assembly went very quiet. Simon said it with the specific quality of someone who perceives something true and is not sure how to say it and says it anyway, not as a clever observation, not as rhetoric, but as a genuine attempt to describe what he had been sensing since the beginning. He was not saying it to frighten anyone. He was saying it because it seemed, to him, to be the most accurate description of what was happening. Jack stood up. He said, "Box to the rules. We're strong. We hunt. If there's a beast, we'll hunt it down. We'll close in and beat, and beat, and beat." He was shouting. His face was red. He had the specific energy of someone who has found that the crowd will follow anger when it will not follow reason, and who is not sure whether he is leading or being led. The assembly dissolved. The conch had been defied. Not formally. Jack had not formally rejected the conch's authority, but the assembly had broken up without resolution, with the Littluns screaming in the dark, and the older boys following Jack's energy rather than Ralph's reason, and the conch sitting in Ralph's hands, with slightly less authority than it had before. Chapter 6. Beast from Air. A dead parachutist came down in the night. He came from the aerial battle that was happening somewhere above the island, the adult war, which the novel never shows directly, but which keeps sending its evidence to the island's shore. A man with a parachute, killed in an aerial combat, drifting down onto the mountain in the dark, his parachute catching in the rocks so that as the wind moved the parachute the body rose and fell in a sitting position. Sam and Eric, the twins, Samneric, who were always together, and always spoke as one, were tending the signal fire on the mountain when the body came down. They saw it in the dark. They ran. They came back to the camp screaming. They said, "The beast, we saw the beast. It had teeth. It followed us." They had seen a dead man in a parachute, and they had seen a beast, because in the dark and the fear, and the specific conditions of being 12 years old on an island without adults, a dead man in a parachute becomes a beast, becomes the thing that the nightmares had been predicting. Ralph organized an expedition to the mountain. The boys went, Ralph and Jack and the older ones, not the Littluns, going to find the beast on the mountain. They found the parachutist. They saw the rising and falling of the body in the dark and they ran, because they were 12 years old and they saw a beast. Because in the dark a dead man, in a parachute is a beast. They did not stay long enough to see what it was. They came back. The beast was real now. Not really real. The beast was a dead man in a parachute, which was real enough in its own way. The adult world's violence manifesting on the island as a body falling from the sky. But it was real in the only way that matters for the novel's purposes, which is that the boys believed it was real, and belief is more powerful than fact, when the belief is organized around fear. Chapter 7. Shadows and Tall Trees. The expedition had not resolved anything. They were on the far side of the island now, cut off from the platform and the conch, and the structures of Ralph's civilization by the mountain, and the beast they believed was on it. They could not light the signal fire because the signal fire was on the mountain, and the beast was on the mountain. Ralph looked at the ocean and felt, for the first time, that rescue was not coming. He looked at the sea, the empty horizon, the specific blankness of water, that goes all the way to somewhere else without stopping, and understood that the world beyond the island was not looking for them. He had been maintaining the idea of rescue as a certainty, a fact, a matter of when rather than whether. Looking at the ocean now, he was less sure. Simon came to him. He said, "You'll get back to where you came from." Ralph said, "How do you know?" Simon said, "I just think you will." He said it with the quality he always had of saying things that were true without being able to say how he knew they were true, which was not mysticism but something more grounded, a direct perception of reality that bypassed the usual channels. He said you, not we. Ralph noticed this later, thinking back. Simon had said you, not we, as though he already knew that his own returning was not part of the picture. That evening the boys played at hunting. Robert was the pig, got down on all fours, submitted to the ring of boys circling him, the pretend spears, the chant beginning, "Kill the pig, cut his throat, kill the pig, bash him in." The game intensified. Someone actually hit Robert with a spear. He screamed. The circle tightened. Ralph felt the desire, felt it, was horrified by feeling it, felt it anyway, the desire to be inside the circle, to be the one with the spear, to participate in the thing that the circle was. He came back to himself. He said, "That was a good game." Roger said, "We ought to have a real pig, because you've got to kill it." The suggestion hung in the air. Chapter 8, Gift for the Darkness. Jack called his own assembly. He stood up with the conch and said, "Ralph said the beast was a hunter. Ralph said he'd seen the beast from the mountain. Ralph is a coward. Ralph isn't a proper chief. Who thinks Ralph shouldn't be chief?" Nobody voted. Jack put down the conch. He said, "I'm going off on my own. Anyone who wants to come, come. Anyone who doesn't, stay here and be rescued." He walked away from the platform. Boys followed him. Not all of them, not immediately, not all at once, but some of them went, and those who stayed had the quality of people who are not sure they have made the right choice, and are watching the other choice walk away through the trees. Jack's tribe built a fire on the beach, not a signal fire, a cooking fire, a fire for the pig they were going to kill. They painted their faces. They had their chant. They were hunters, not rescuers, and the distinction had stopped being a problem because the rescue had stopped being the point. Piggy said, "We should light the fire here. We should keep the fire going for rescue." Ralph said, "We'll keep the fire." He said it with the specific desperation of someone who knows the thing he is fighting for is slipping, and is holding on with less and less leverage. In the jungle, Simon found his clearing, his secret place, the open space where the light came through the canopy in a particular way, the place he went when the weight of everything became too heavy. He went there and sat. The hunters killed a sow. They killed her with the specific brutality of people who have stopped moderating themselves. The sow was a nursing mother, killed with a thoroughness and a savagery that exceeded what the killing required. Jack cut off her head. He put it on a stick sharpened at both ends, driven into the earth, an offering, he said, for the beast. Simon watched from the trees. The flies settled on the pig's head. The heat and the blood and the flies and the smell. Simon sat in his clearing with the pig's head on its stick, and the flies gathering, and something began to happen to him. He had a vision. The pig's head spoke. It said, "Fancy thinking, the beast was something you could hunt and kill. You knew, didn't you? I'm part of you. Close, close, close. I'm the reason why it's no go. Why things are what they are. Lord of the Flies." That is what the Hebrew word Beelzebub means, Lord of the Flies, the name for the devil in some traditions. Golding named his novel for this moment, for the pig's head on a stick talking to the one boy who already knew the answer, confirming what Simon had said at the assembly in chapter 5. The beast is not something you can hunt and kill. The beast is not in the parachutist on the mountain. The beast is in the boys. It has always been in the boys. It was in them when they arrived on the island, and it is in them now more thoroughly, and more visibly, and the painted faces and the chant, and the sow's head are not the beast arriving from outside. They are the beast that was always inside being given permission to express itself. Simon understood this. He had always understood it, incompletely, and now he understood it completely. Then he fainted. The vision had been too much, the sun and the heat and the intensity of what he had seen, his body giving way under it. He lay in his clearing unconscious while the flies settled on the pig's head, and the hunters danced on the beach, and Ralph and Piggy tended a dwindling fire. Episode transition. You have reached the end of episode 2 of Lord of the Flies, by William Golding. The island has split. Jack has his tribe and his fire and his chant. Ralph has the conch and a diminishing number of followers and a fire that is going out. Simon knows what the beast is. In episode 3, the final episode, Simon tries to bring this knowledge down from the mountain, and is killed before he can deliver it. Then Piggy. Then the naval officer arrives on the beach and finds the boys, and asks what they have been doing, and Ralph, who cannot explain it, begins to weep. Episode 3 is available next week. Subscribe to Around the World Lit Audio so you never miss a chapter. A new episode arrives every week.